You may have wondered, what is a capital campaign in fundraising? Well, stick around and I'll tell you what it is. I'm glad you asked the question, what is a capital campaign in fundraising? Because there's a lot of confusion about what a capital campaign is. Years ago, a capital campaign meant that you were building a new building. You were remodeling a building. It was a structure, was a capital campaign. Well, over the years, that's changed. Now people call a capital campaign anything where you're raising large amounts of money. Now, the large amounts of money depends on the size of your nonprofit. If you're a smaller nonprofit, your capital campaign dollar amount is going to be much lower. If you're a large nonprofit, your capital campaign might be many millions of dollars. What I think will help, though, in determining what is a capital campaign is talking about the other types of campaigns. There are 7 types besides your capital campaign that we just talked about that I think it's important to be able to distinguish between. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one of those. So let's start off with an endowment campaign. What an endowment campaign is, it's in the dollars that are invested into that endowment campaign. So a donor will give money, you create a specific endowment campaign with your financial advisors or with your bank or whatever. And so you establish a dollar amount that when that endowment campaign gets to that dollar amount, it will be endowed. And then what happens is you let it sit for a year. You don't touch it that first year. And then it spins off earnings. So most nonprofit boards have a spending policy. So let's say that pretty typical is a 4 to 5% spending policy, 4 or 5%. Because hopefully your earnings, your investments are earning about 7%. When that spins off those earnings, then that's money that goes into your nonprofit into perpetuity forever that then you can spend on certain things that the endowment was established for. Now, one nonprofit that I worked with, we had someone who passed away, and his planned gift, his estate gift to us was $17 million. Well, each year it spun off, which the earnings of that spun off at about $800,000. It paid for my entire development staff. So it's important if you can establish an endowment so that you can have that money to spin off to cover whatever that endowment's established for. It could be established for a program. It could be established if you're in a university or a school setting. It could endow a faculty position, and then it pays for that position into the future. Number 1, endowment campaign. Number 2, an annual fund campaign. An annual fund campaign is just the one that you do every year. So it might be that you do 1 a year, and it might be that you do 2 a year. It's what you send out your letter, your annual appeal letter at the end of the year. You might do one in the spring, but that is your annual fund. These are your annual operating expenses. Number 3 is your unrestricted. These are your operations. Many times your annual fund will go into unrestricted, but just depending on how your nonprofit is set up, everything that a donor gives may go into that unrestricted fund. But if it doesn't, having an unrestricted campaign so that it can pay the expenses for your nonprofit. And then of course the next one, number 4, is your restricted campaign. And restricted means that somebody has said, you need a new basketball court. You all need a swimming pool. You need whatever it is. And you do a campaign just for that. And then when people give money, it goes into a special account that is restricted. Next, let's talk about planned giving. So I talked about an estate that we received of $17 million. If you have a planned giving campaign, which I highly recommend, I had a nonprofit consultant say, if you are not talking about estate planning and planned giving with each of your donors, you are creating fundraising malpractice. So every time we talk to a donor, we should be talking about planned giving. But if you haven't done it before, if you have a planned giving campaign that rides along with your capital campaign or with one of your other campaigns, then that's going to help give people other avenues to be able to give to you. Then we have a debt reduction campaign. Those are some of the hardest I've ever done. When I wrote my book, I originally said debt reduction campaigns never work, don't do them. Well, I went back and changed the language in my book because now I've done 2 debt reduction campaigns. They have both been successful in raising the money to retire the debt. They are very difficult to do. If you do your homework first, you do your feasibility study, you do what you should do with your campaign before you get started, you won't get into the situation where you have to do a debt reduction campaign. The last one I'm going to talk about, though, is a combination of all the others. It's called a comprehensive campaign. So with your comprehensive campaign, you say to people, you can give money over here to the endowment campaign, you can give it to the capital campaign, you can give it to this restricted amount. So you put it all together so that you don't have to go back to your donors multiple times over the year to talk about, okay, so do you want to give for this? Do you want to give for this? Do you want to give for this? Now, one of the campaigns I did, I called a quasi-comprehensive campaign instead of calling it comprehensive because it didn't encompass everything in the organization, but it encompassed our endowment campaign, it encompassed our annual fund campaign, and it encompassed our capital campaign. So it had those 3 areas, so it wasn't a true comprehensive campaign. Those are the types of campaigns. There's 8 that I know of. You might know of more. Let me know if there's other campaigns that you've run that I've missed in that list. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just click on that subscribe button. It's right up there. And then every time I have a new video, you'll be able to see. And because I talk about lots of different topics and I'll talk more about campaigns. Thanks for joining me.